things actually have gotten better. I'm sorry. They were paying it in 37 days. Now they're paying in 2 months. Remember, payables are you using somebody else's money. So it's in a sense, it's a funding. Uh, they were paying their trade credit in 5 weeks, but they were getting their money back in 7 weeks. So they basically had 2 weeks worth of extra funding they had to provide. Now it's about the same. That's kind of actually ideal. It takes my clients to pay me 2 months, and I pay my trade credit in 2 months, which means I don't have to worry about other kind of funding. Dell is kind of a master of this. I'm gonna kind of leave it to you. Download Dell's financial statements, calculate the same ratios. You're gonna see that their days sales and payables is very high, and days sales and receivables is very low. Okay, so they collect their receivables very fast because in most cases the receivables are credit card receivables, and they string along their suppliers as long as they could, which means they're using their suppliers' money to fund their own operations. That's one way of doing working capital management, which is a topic you should be able to see in your Finance 301 class. If not, at some point, you're going to do a capstone finance class. Uh, we're going to actually do something like that over there, hopefully by next fall. We haven't passed it yet, but I'll get there. Okay. Oh, I've forgotten the mother of all asset efficiency ratios, total asset turnover, aka TAT, sales over total assets. This basically says using $1 of assets, how much sales that could generate. They're not as interesting as inventory turnover or receivables turnover, partly because total assets are generally dominated by fixed assets, and the book value of fixed assets is not necessarily the real value. There is an alternative measure, again, contains the same information. It's called capital intensity ratio, which is 1 over TAT, CAR, or total asset over sales. It basically says how many dollars of assets do you need for $1 of sales. Again, different way of looking at it. Some people like sideways, some people like it portrait. Some people can read writing upside down. I can, for example, because it's all about pattern recognition. Just for the hell of it, let's look at that number for NVIDIA. Where are they? Sales over. So what do you think happened? Things have gotten better or worse? Back in 2022, $1 of asset generated 65 cents of sales. Now it's generating 93. So things gotten better. But given the net fixed asset stuff, I'm always kind of wary about using TAT. Sometimes when I'm analyzing a firm for the purpose of valuation, especially valuation by comparing to other firms, I also look at the current asset turnover. I divide sales by current assets. In a sense, how much liquid capital do you use to generate let's call this CAT. I don't think your book talks about this, but just because you're not responsible for it in the test doesn't mean I shouldn't teach you that. Sales divided by current assets. Where are you? So things also have gotten better. Using $1 of current assets, they were able to generate 20 cents more from 22 to 27, 22 to 23. So in a sense, you don't need that much liquid funding anymore. You can think of it that way. So if I'm kind of evaluating my working capital manager, that's probably a number that I'm going to look at. Not only I'm going to look at it over time, whether we are doing things better, I'm going to also look at my competitors. As an exercise to yourself, look at the same numbers for AMD. I mean, AMD also does regular chips, but let's see what kind of numbers they have. So if I'm going to give stock options to my working capital manager, I'm the CEO or the board, I'm going to say, compared to AMD, you're not doing that well, so I'm not going to reward you that much. Or you're doing much better than our previous one, I'm going to reward you. Or I could do a formula, not everybody does, but I'm going to give you stock options based on your current asset turnover, for example. All right, we have 15 minutes. Let's start talking about profitability measures. Come on. We're going to use three of them. Profit margin, PM, uh, return on assets, ROA, and return on equity, ROE. They all divide net income by something, okay? PM is net income over sales. So out of $1 of sales, how many cents do I get to keep after everything? You know, uh, regular costs, operating costs, interest, and taxes. ROA is net income divided by total assets. This is kind of a measure of how much money I'm generating per dollar invested into company. Not just me, but creditors' money as well. and ROE is net income divided by total equity. Now, ROE is of more interest to shareholders. ROA is of interest to both. And these three numbers are also kind of related to each other. And the way these numbers are related to each other, it's called the DuPont analysis. It's and we have an identity called DuPont identity. It's called DuPont because it was first used in the company DuPont in 1930s.